All right, gang. Are you guys ready to do this?
Yeah.
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 Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's make it happen. Welcome to Badass Customer Interviews Live. I'm so excited that you guys are here. I'm excited for two reasons. Number one, we're going to be doing some incredible learning about customer development today. We're going to do some learning about customer interviews. And best of all, we're going to do this learning with 0 slides. Everyone say zero.
Zero.
Very good. So this is not going to be your typical webinar. This is going to be an interactive experience. And that's the other reason why I'm really excited about this. I'm excited because today represents when cavemen first crawled out of their caves and they saw the wonderful power and life-giving energy of fire. That day is today for us. And I say that because the very first caveman recognized that, hey, if I can take this rock and I can bang it against this rock, I can create life-giving fire. And today we are taking the rock of the internet and we are taking the rock of experiential interactive learning, and we are banging them together to create a mind-melting, game-changing experience. I promise you today, after today, online learning will never be the same because as you've noticed, you've partnered with someone. We've found you, this person, awesome, amazing founder on the internet. We've partnered you with another awesome, amazing founder from the internet, and you guys are going to collaborate together to make this an incredible learning experience. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Yes. All right. So this is what today's all about. It's about trying to bring some of the interactivity that happens in in-person workshops and bring it to the online community. And I'm really excited that you guys are here, and thank you so much for playing around with us. There will probably, as we're playing with fire, we'll probably get burned. So let me just make it clear that things will go wrong throughout the session, but we're going to keep it nimble. We're going to keep agile with us, and then we're going to try our best and make this an incredible experience. So the first thing I want to do is I want to walk through the tools that you have at your hand, at your disposal. Make sure you know how to use your rocks. So I'm just going to turn on screen sharing real quick. So you have two sections underneath the video. You have two sections. You have your interview questions and your interview responses. One of you in the partnership is going to type out the questions. So you're going to hear me do an interview live, and one of you guys needs to type out the questions you hear me asking my interviewee. Yes? Does this make sense? Everyone say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, very good. Okay, so now interview responses. The other person is going to be typing out the interview responses. So as the customer is describing or answering my questions, the other partner is going to be typing out the key words, key phrases, the emotional cues that person's using. Does that make sense? Everyone say yes?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, so now underneath that is the chat room. So here you can only see one window, but all of you guys should have two tabs here. One is the general session, and then the other is your private tab for you and your partner to chat on. Does anyone not have those two tabs in my Hangout? Yes, everyone has it, looks like. Okay, great. Talk with your partner and make sure everyone has decided who's going to do the questions and who's going to do the responses. Has each of you guys decided who's going to do that within your partnership?
Deciding right now.
Okay, cool. But you guys you're chatting and everyone can see each other and you guys can exchange messages?
Yep.
Okay, awesome, great. All right. So one of the things that you're going to be paying attention for in these interviews are the different types of questions. So there's going to be a set of questions that are going to be a set of qualifiers that come in. And that's just to make sure that our customer is exactly who we think they should be. Second set of questions are going to be around the problems they have. And then the third set of questions are going to be around what actions they're taking to try and solve these problems. Let's see how it works. Hey there, my name is Justin. Can I get your first name, please? Apparently I cannot. So that person just hung up. So we're using Mechanical Turk to get these phone calls. And sometimes when people call on Mechanical Turk, they think they're going to get an automated phone survey. And they are not. They're getting a real human. Hopefully this one sticks around. Hey, my name is Justin. Can I get your first name, please? Oh, hello. Can you hear me? Oh, hello. Can you hear me? Oh, we had one. We had one there for a second. Did you guys hear her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully they'll keep going. Like I said, we're gonna play with fire a little bit. We're gonna get burned, but we have seen this work. So hopefully this won't be a problem. Hello, my name is Justin. Can I get your first name, please?
Rose.
Rose? Okay, Rose. Great. Thank you so much. All right, gang. Unfortunately, my phone is acting a fool, and I'm having trouble keeping people connected. Hello, this is Justin. Can I get your first name, please?
Hello?
Oh, hello. Is this Rose?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. Sorry about the disconnection.
That's okay.
All right. So you have a family member or friend who has ADHD?
Yeah, I have two daughters, one that has ADHD and one that has ADD.
Oh, wow. All right. So can you tell me which daughter would you like to talk about? I'm going to ask specifically around the challenges you have with raising a daughter with ADHD. Which daughter would you like to talk about?
Well, which age would you prefer? One's 13 and one's 9.
All right. Well, let's take the 13-year-old. What's her name?
Okay. Annie.
Annie. Okay, great. So at what age was Annie diagnosed?
She was 8 years old.
8 years old. Okay, great. And she was diagnosed with ADHD?
Yeah.
Okay. And can you tell me what's the biggest challenges for you as a parent having a child that has ADHD?
Annie's biggest issue was it was really hard for her to sleep. She just could not bring herself to sleep at night. And, of course, her school performance really suffers when they don't sleep.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So can you tell me, as a parent, yourself, what's the hardest part about that for you?
I think my hardest part for me was trying to help her cope with settling down. She really, you could see the frustration she had because she couldn't settle down. She couldn't get tired. She would be up and down all night, and it's really frustrating as a parent to try to not get angry at them because they can't really help it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds tough. You've got a child who's obviously suffering and not feeling very well, but that also is frustrating for you because. Well, tell me why. Tell me a little bit more. Is that frustrating for you?
It's very frustrating because when it first happens, you're angry, and then you realize that this is becoming a pattern. Maybe there's something wrong, so you take her to the doctor, and they run tests, and this becomes the diagnosis, and all of a sudden you feel guilty because you treated her so badly in the beginning. Then you're frustrated because you don't want to put her on a mound of drugs and have her stoned all the time. So you're working trying to help her learn coping mechanisms so she can become a functioning adult one day.
Yeah, that sounds really important, and it sounds really interesting. The emotions you're talking about between being frustrated but then feeling guilty at some point.
Yeah, for a while I was really hard on her because I thought she was just doing it to annoy me, the way little kids do.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So tell me, when was this that you had these challenges?
When did I have the challenges?
Yeah, when you're talking about the frustration of her not going to bed and then going to the doctor.
She was about the 3rd grade, so she was just about 9 years old. We had just found out about it, and they put her on a really weak medication, but it wasn't doing anything for her sleeping. And of course, they fear putting her on a sleeping pill because that can be very habit-forming.
Right.
So when she was in the 3rd grade, it was really frustrating. We tried warm baths. We tried reading a story. We took away all electronics about an hour before bedtime. All the little tidbits that you see online and in the internet and stuff. And finally, we came up with a few little things that kind of worked enough to make her at least somewhat tired. At least she'll lay there in bed for a little bit now.
Right, right. And how about now? What are the biggest challenges for you right now, considering your daughter has ADHD?
Now some of the biggest challenges now is they want to wean her off the medication. So as a parent, I'm trying to figure out how do you figure out coping mechanisms. Since I don't have ADHD, I'm not sure what coping mechanisms an adult with ADHD really needs. So I would actually like to see more websites out there discussing adult ADHD. Maybe that would help us parents of children who are going to be that way someday.
Oh,
to help them rationalize becoming an adult and how they can get a job and function and be a member of society still.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, well that makes sense. So trying to help your daughter have coping mechanisms so she can be a functioning adult sounds important. Are you doing anything now to help her with that?
We try like these exercises where, like in the summer, she doesn't take her medication. And so in the summer, we try exercises where she's really going to try to concentrate and focus for at least 30 minutes on something. We try like Sudoku puzzles, things that really require a lot of concentration, and she has siblings who try to help her. If they notice she's all of a sudden her mind's wandering or she's looking around, they'll mention it so she tries to refocus on her task. Try to help her how to control, I guess, the wanderings that go on with children with ADHD in their mind.
Right, right, right. Wow. Okay. Well, that sounds really interesting, and that's something you say you're doing that this summer.
Yeah, we did it this summer. She just started back to school today, so hopefully maybe it'll work a little bit.
Yeah, wonderful. Awesome, Rose. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to answer my questions. We're building an application to help folks with ADHD try and be on time, because we know that a lot of them suffer from not having great time management skills, and we're building an application to remind them when they need to go places.
That's true.
Yeah. When we launch, is that something that it would be okay if I told you about?
Oh yes, I would love to see that.
Okay, wonderful, great. Well then, I'm gonna after we do the Mechanical Turk hit, I will request some information, and I'll get your email address, and I'll tell you about it there.
Okay.
Wonderful, Rose. Okay, well thank you so much for your time. The password you need is watermelon.
Watermelon, is it letter sensitive?
Nope, you can do either case, and it's one word, but 2 words will work too.
Okay, but yeah, I would really, because like I said, I have 2, so I would really be interested in that.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Rose. Have a good one.
You have a nice day too.
Okay, bye.
Awesome.
All right, team, that's it. Yes, right? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
Yes,
that was awesome.
The customer interview. All right, team. So I want to hear from you guys, and Henrik, you keep an eye on the chat. I want to hear from you guys. What are your takeaways from that? Just throw out things that came to you, ideas, takeaways, questions, everything you got. Fire away.
I noticed you were asking why a lot as kind of a follow-up. Any reasoning behind that, or it seemed to reveal a lot of emotion, so maybe you could comment on that.
Yeah. So great question. Yeah, why is a really big question, and it's something that I'm pulling for. When, in particular, there were some times where I was asking, where she told me at the very beginning, she told me about the problems of her daughter, but I don't want to know her problems, the daughter's problems. I want to know her problems because she's my customer. And so here I'm trying to ask what's hard about that for her, and then I'm trying to ask, why is that hard for you? So we are trying to pull out the emotional cues there. What kind of emotions did you guys hear her bring up?
Frustrating,
Yeah,
angry.
frustration.
Yeah, angry.
She felt
Yeah.
guilty.
Guilty. That was a really big one. Guilty. That's really insightful, right? Like, so I'm not a parent, but if I wanted to serve this segment, I now know that a parent can get easily frustrated with their child, thinking that, oh, this is just what little kids do. They annoy me because it's fun for them, and then all of a sudden I find out later on that it's something she's been diagnosed with, and now I feel guilty. Like, those are incredible insights, things that I can go and leverage in my marketing copy or when I'm working with my customers. So, man, that was gold right there to hear those emotional cues.
I have a question, Justin.
Sure.
How long does it take to kind of get attuned to these emotional responses, and just to be able to come up with a on-the-go follow-on question like that? Like, let's say, how many interviews did it take you to get there?
Well, to get to that level, I've done quite a few interviews, so I won't lie about that. And it does definitely take some practice. So I highly recommend getting some practice. By the way, Mechanical Turk, we'll send out a post so everyone knows how to get these interviews, but Mechanical Turk is a fantastic way just to get practice interviewing. But I would say once I started using that 5-question script that you guys all should have read before you got here, it only took maybe 4 or 5 interviews before I knew what to ask. Because there's only 5 questions, it's not hard to remember, and then it began to become a sort of a natural flow. So definitely give it a shot, practice it a little while. It's going to be awkward, it's going to feel weird, but once you try it a couple times, it should sort of even out.
Okay.
Justin, you say you have a 5-question script. Do you find yourself just flowing with the conversation as the conversation continues? I mean, obviously you ask more than 5 questions, right? So it's just kind of, you roll with the conversation.
Great question. So I'm actually, in that interview, it took me probably 10 questions to get to my 5-question interview script. And that's because she was, like, that first question, she answered it from the perspective of her daughter, but I didn't want that perspective. I wanted her perspective, so I asked it again. And then at one point, she was talking about the biggest challenges. You remember what were the first set of challenges she talked about? Do you guys remember that?
Hard for her to sleep, couldn't bring herself to sleep. Her school performance was struggling.
Right. And do you know the time frame? Yeah, what was that?
She was 8.
Yeah, she was 8. Yeah, so she was talking about problems in the past, and I'm not interested in problems in the past. So it was great to hear her talk about those problems and describe what she was doing to try and solve them, but I wasn't interested in those, so I had to try it again. And do you remember what I asked about, like, to try and keep her into now's time frame?
What are the current challenges around having a child with ADHD?
Exactly. So I just brought her into this time frame. So, okay, great. I understand. I recognize these problems from the past. Tell me, what's the challenges you're facing right now? So that brings her in. So we're still basically on question 1 at that point, even though I've asked a handful of questions. Henrik, do we have any questions from the chat? I know I saw one. One was, and it was great. Hey, I thought we weren't supposed to talk about our product. And I'm so glad that someone caught that, because we're not supposed to talk about our product. I wanted to make sure that everyone saw that as a no-no. Don't do that. In the video, we talk all about why we don't want to do that, but we don't want to do that. Also want to mention that was a false positive, in my opinion. She said, yes, please send me information about this. I really want information about this, but that is a red herring. When someone says, yes, I would like information about something that is not a problem they're trying to tackle now, then it's probably not going to be a good fit for them. So I was really grateful to hear her say I would want that, but because like I said, it's a red herring. To ask someone, hey, would you like this product, you are asking them to lie to you. So don't do it. What you need to pay attention to.
Sorry, Justin. Stacy also asked, how much does it matter that you didn't mention the problem that you're trying to solve with your app?
Oh, it matters so significantly. Great question, Stacy. Because she has a real problem that she's trying to solve. What's the real problem she's trying to solve?
More information about transitioning to an adult with ADHD.
Right, exactly. She has a real problem, a problem that she's actively trying to solve. This is a gold mine. She's just told us, I'm looking to give my child coping mechanisms. So now we know exactly what we should be building. So, this customer, if I really wanted to build a Be On Time app, then I either need to interview more people and hope they have different responses, interview a different set of people, or I should focus on, if I want to do this customer segment, I should focus on what their problems are. And we have one person who is actively trying to solve a coping mechanism problem. This is where we want to build a business. Right? This is gold. This is why we do customer development interviews, is because she's just told us, if I'm trying to solve this problem right now, if you go out and try and solve it, I would love that solution.
One more question, Justin.
Yeah.
So Christian asked, you did a lot of digging on emotions. Does that also work for a business interview?
Oh, really good question. So what do we do in B2B plays? Fantastic question. So the way I would roll this in a B2B situation is I would ask more about what this person's role is so that I understand what their job title entails. Then I would start asking about their success. Like, what does success look like for them in their role? And then when we start talking about challenges, I would premise that with, okay, well, what's the most difficult thing about achieving that success in your role? So whether it's a business owner or an HR specialist, whatever, I've got the interview and I'm talking about, solving some sort of problem. I will say, tell me a little bit more about your role so that I understand. And then I'll ask about, okay, well, what does success look like? And what are the biggest obstacles to achieving that success? So right now, what I'm doing is instead of focusing on the emotional cues of the problems that they bring up, I'm focusing really on the challenges that are at hand for them achieving their success in that role. So I might still look at emotions, because even salespeople, HR people, they all get frustrated. We all have emotions all the time. So I would still definitely look for emotional cues. But in the B2B interviews, I'm really focused on the problems associated with achieving their success criteria. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I want to do a quick time check. So we've got until 26. Okay, so we're behind schedule. Okay, so I gotta move. Great questions. Keep them coming. And we're just going to keep an eye on them, and then we're going to do our best to answer these questions either later today, or we might have a supplemental hangout tomorrow for more Q&A. All right, so moving on. Here's what I want you guys to do. I want each of you, you can do it on the page with your partner, or you can do it somewhere else, but I want to take 60 seconds, and I want each of you to silently write down one takeaway, one or two takeaways from the interview you just saw. All right, so 60 seconds on the clock. One thing you're going to take away from the interview you just saw. All right. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for doing that. If you feel comfortable, we would love to see what your takeaways are so we can make sure that we are on track. If you could, just copy and paste your takeaway into the group chat, and then we'll start compiling them, and then we'll make adjustments for our next workshop. All right, thank you very much. Now it is time. Now that you've seen it done, it's your chance to do an interview. So what I want you to do is that I want you to find your private chat with the person with your partner, and I want you to trade phone numbers with that person. I want one of you guys to ask for the other person's phone number, and you're going to call them up, and you're going to interview each other. You're going to get 5 minutes each, and you're going to ask each other what's the most difficult thing about starting a company. So this is your chance to actually practice. So Dimitri, it's your chance to actually give this stuff a flow and try and get into this rhythm. So if for some reason the person's out of the country and you don't have money or whatever and you can't do international, then do Skype. But do try phone numbers first, because we want you to keep this window open and we don't want to suck down too much bandwidth with Skype. You know what I'm saying? So if you can't do phone numbers, if you can't do Skype, but we're gonna put 12 minutes on the clock. I'm gonna put 12 minutes on the clock, and I'm going to make sure that you guys get started. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, rock and roll and start interviewing each other. 5 minutes each, and then we'll tell you when to switch.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, so guys in the Hangout, I should hear you guys calling each other or talking. It should be a really loud mess, and you guys all talking over each other.
Hey Anthony, this is Mitri calling. How are you? Very good, thanks. So I was curious, are you a startup owner? Founder?
Great. So I suggested I'll interview you first, if you don't mind.
Oh,
Yeah,
very
that's
good.
totally
Okay.
Okay,
so,
cool.
So you have the kind of
guess
comfort of
I know we work together a little bit in CATS, but it would be great to hear your background a little bit and
try and see if you
what
can
kind of
make
businesses
a
you
business.
start, basic information like that.
Okay. In just this past year in March, I decided to leave my full-time human resources job and pursue starting our own business. I have 2 little children,
So
my husband and I
kind of just
live
following
on
the script. So what's your role in
we were
that?
always interested in starting our own business. So we kind of started off thinking we were going to go one direction along the hearing aid or hearing impaired world. And we kind of have taken a pivot after 3 months of doing some customer development and
I
realized
see.
that
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about your?
Can you tell me more about the process you went on during that 3 months and some of the challenges you faced during it?
Yeah. So basically, at first, it was a lot of educating myself on startups. Reaching out to Justin. I spent a lot of time reading books because basically this was all new to me. This was not new to my husband, so he was kind of helping me understand what we were going to be doing, and so we got comfortable with.
Yo, how's the interview going?
Customer interviews.
Still waiting for a call.
So what would you say is the most difficult thing?
Or for a phone number to call.
Good. I was pleasantly
really define
surprised
success
with the number of interviews I was able to get that were pretty helpful. It turned out that the problems or the challenges we thought they had weren't anything that we wanted to fix or could fix necessarily, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Is that more from, I guess, what perspective couldn't you fix them? Is it like technology or your kind of passion?
Yeah, it was a lot of the problems and challenges were around the hearing aid itself.
Okay, interesting. So, what are you doing right now to solve those problems?
The loss of the person's hearing was so significant that there's only so much a hearing aid.
I guess within your own product, it's stuff there.
How to do that. So.
Okay. Gotcha. So now that you're kind of going through this pivot, what are some of the challenges you guys are facing and possibly going down a new direction?
Yeah, so we are completely getting out of the hearing impaired world. So I don't even know if it's fair to call it a pivot.
Okay.
Because it's completely a different segment. It's actually focused on stay-at-home moms. And creating.
Oh, I see. So just so I understand, so just trying to get buy-in from people so that they actively participate in this process.
Made up kits that their kids can do. So activities, crafts, things to keep their kids busy. So mom can have like 10 minutes to go take a shower or unload the dishwasher or whatever she might need to do. It would be kind of like a busy box concept. So providing.
All right, guys, now it's almost time to flip around, to switch, so the other person tries to review.
All right, guys, switch. It's almost time to switch.
Something that the mom can
Switch
say,
and
hey,
roll. Finish up this interview. And
Gotcha. I think Justin's
interviewing
waving.
someone else.
Oh.
1 sec, sorry.
1 sec. Yeah, everyone, switch.
So,
Switch.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Switch.
Yeah, he's saying switch.
Switch. Switch. Switch.
Okay, I do have one. So I shared a little bit of info about the project I'm working on, and since you're familiar with Mechanical Turk, it'd be great to chat more later in like in a real interview. I think you said you wouldn't mind that.
This is amazing what's happening here. We have founders interviewing each other from around the world in real time. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. Should I stay on the phone?
Yeah, but
on the headphones?
thank you very much. I think this is really awesome.
I muted my laptop, so I didn't get too much feedback, and I'm just on the phone basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so Justin can't hear you.
No, he can hear me. I think.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Yeah. I muted my laptop, like pressed the button.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Hang out, so I'm muted.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I unplugged my headphones, so it
I
picks up
found
on
a
it.
few companies, and my current startup, it's a game studio, but
But go ahead, it's all you.
Okay.
just
So I am here to
building
interview
business. So I'm trying
you
to
about your
see
business.
how why my
Wanted to
background,
understand exactly how long have you been pursuing
beauty,
this startup?
graphics, and games.
Sure. The one I'm going to talk about in this context, because I have multiple, is we've been working on probably about 2 weeks now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
You said you have multiple projects. Huh?
kind of computer chip. I'm a founder.
Yes.
And what do you think stopped it?
So I guess let's focus on the one that's the most recent, the one that you've been working on. Kind of a general question, but what have you found so far
Why do you think
that's been the most interesting about starting that?
to make those decisions? Do the things you need to do.
It's a little hard to answer. Let's
I
see.
mean, it's kind of just partnering with other people and
We've
going.
had problems with.
So basically,
It's so hard to answer
one
because
idea,
when
and
I'm
then
applying good
just
stuff
trying
to
to
it.
co-founders with
I'm going to change businesses because this one is too fresh, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. So the one I've been working on for about a year, and we're at the stage where we're trying to get people to start paying us for it. If that makes sense. So it's a online software as a service. We released a version 1, and now we are basically making sales pitches to
because as a technologist, I can do a lot of different
the biggest
things,
problem
but,
with it
I
has
think
been a
focus
combination
is,
of
one of my
getting
top.
our customers' attention and getting them to actually do a demo. The customer base we're working with are contractors, so they're already kind of pushed for time, and even though our
while coming up with these
save
more
them
skilled
time,
developers,
that
trying to
initial
do
demo
research
stuff
experiments,
has kind of been a problem.
I'd say
Okay.
having to do
So,
consulting would be one of
what I
these.
heard you say is that they're pushed for time, so they're not necessarily reaching out and saying, hey, can you let them?
providers.
Is that what I'm hearing?
That's a kind of
Yes, and we've done a lot of customer interviews and
But
understand their pain points and everything, and they even agree that this is a solution. Some of them have said, this is a solution I need, but
it's an
I
interesting
just
question.
don't have the time to kind of do the demo right now. Can you try back in a month or two?
Just if
their work is
for
very
example,
seasonal,
you mentioned,
just kind of
I'm
as a
just trying
side
to do a
note,
parallel,
and
right?
that's
So
part of it, but that's kind of the big problem we're facing
having
now.
the comfort of funding.
well, no, I
Your
think
organization,
that's maybe you can tell me a little bit more.
that's awesome. So for me, I need to
So they're contractors
fund
that
my
specialize in energy
development efforts.
projects and
Kind of just
energy efficiency projects tend to get done when it's really hot and really cold out because that's when people use more energy and their homes aren't as comfortable.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned
Yes.
getting them to do the demo, getting their attention.
Yes. And so my
Why
challenge has
is that
been, kind of another challenge
Alright, guys.
to
Probably because
try to grow
we have.
consulting. And,
Time to cut
Alright,
it.
sounds good, and I'll follow up with you another time.
Alright,
Thank you.
My challenge
Yeah,
is
thanks.
to
All right, everybody.
scale the consulting efforts by
Good talking to you,
Close it down.
Good luck. Bye-bye.
Time to go.
So, anyway,
Wow.
yeah.
Great job, guys.
don't know, I
Great
think
job.
Justin's
I'm
saying
so
we're running out
excited
of
and
time,
grateful
like,
that.
so,
Oh, and you guys can't hear me.
I'd love to talk
So
more.
excited and grateful that you guys
But I wanna continue
dove into
with
that and
the-
gave that a shot. How was that experience?
It was good. To be honest, I'm fairly comfortable with interviews, but doing it live is always a challenge. I've used your script as kind of a guideline in the past and relied on that again.
Nice. Okay, cool. So, so what was the challenge that you said? Something's always a challenge doing it live?
Yeah, doing it kind of live and on the spot, and balancing between what problem context do I focus on without going too big of what's the biggest problem you face in your life versus too details that we start focusing on a solution.
Right. Yeah, finding that balance is really tough. And to be honest, for what it's worth, I really like going broad. I'd much rather go broad and let them surface the problems that they are actively trying to solve, because that's really what we're looking for here. When we're doing our interviews, we're not just looking for a list of problems that they have. The problems that they mention are sort of irrelevant. They're irrelevant unless they're actively trying to solve them. So if we point someone in a direction and say, hey, what's the hardest part about using Google AdWords for a startup situation? they may tell us some problems, but unless they're actively trying to solve them, they're not early adopters and they're not going to use our solution. So by casting a wide net, we may be getting them to talk about problems that we have no interest in solving, but at least they're interested in solving them. They're big enough problems that they're taking active steps to go and solve them. That's the problems we're looking for. So by casting a wide net, you'll get a list of problems, and they may not be the ones that you want, but at least they're taking action, so you can decide maybe you'll pivot there at some point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's the hardest part for me is human resources is my background. Interviewing is what I've done my whole career, and so I like interview questions. I could come up with a 3-page script right now to interview somebody. So when you say 5 questions and to keep it general, wow, that's tough for me.
Interesting. So what's the toughest part about that?
Just because I find myself wanting to like ask them specifics. You know, I find myself directing them a little bit to a topic versus them giving me that and then me digging into that.
Gotcha. Okay, so when you say directing them sort of towards an idea that you would hope that they would validate? Is that?
Yeah, or just a question around that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, it's really hard, and it's one of the reasons why we try not to pitch at all. Just like get that stuff out of your brain. It's all about them, and it's all about focusing on our customer and how we can serve them. But I hear you. It's super tough. Dimitri, any thoughts about that? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, actually, one big comment. I mean, for me, actually, I've done a few customer development interviews before, and so, for me, I think the challenge has been staying focused on these 5 questions, and I really like the way you led, ask 10 questions before you actually got to your first question out of those 5. That was awesome, and I mean, I need to learn how to do that. But for me, the challenge has been just staying on top of these questions because we want to go from one to the other in that sequence. But I mean, I felt like I wanted to have a human conversation and not just be the automated survey machine. You know what I mean? So and I think that for me that kind of gets in the way, right? And what would be your how would I approach that? How would I solve them? That's my question.
Great question. Yeah, we don't want to be automatons just walking through a script and not really paying attention or engaging with this other human being that's across from us that has genuine problems that we're interested in. And this is a tough one, and it's tough because we got to find that balance, and it comes from me. It came with practice. That once I'd memorized what questions I need to ask next, I need to know what the problem is they're solving. I need to know a specific instance about it. I need to know why it was a problem, what they're doing to solve it, and what sucks about that solution. I need to know all of those things. And once I sort of know the order, I've memorized that, it gets a little easier to go. So I'd say do 5 interviews. Do 5 more. Let them be automated and robotic. That's fine. You'll get into a groove, and then eventually it'll become second nature, and you'll know what happens next, and then you'll be able to sort of link and have a more human, more flowing conversation.
I see. Okay. So your advice would be rather than just trying to have a conversation, still try to stick with the script, and then makes sense.
Yeah. Stick with the script, and then your natural conversation skills will sort of start to ebb and flow into that conversation.
Okay, makes sense.
Quick question here from Nick. Do you qualify your customers before getting into the interview?
So was that do you qualify or how do you?
Or how do you? Well, the question here is actually do you qualify? So is that important, or can you talk to anyone?
Yeah, it's really important. It's really important. Okay, I'm gonna try and hit this one really quickly for 2 reasons. One, if you don't qualify your customers and you're talking to a broad set of people across customer segments, you're not going to be able to figure out a pattern amongst the problems. So, for example, ADHD. I did that interview with a mom. If I talk to someone whose sister has ADHD or who is a mother of a child who is an adult, they're all going to have drastically different problems. So you have to qualify your customers so you know who exactly you're talking to. And I would recommend, if after you've qualified them, if they don't fit a very specific niche, that you don't even interview them at all. For my example, I'm looking to interview anybody, so you guys can see what that looks like. But if I was really targeting let's say, siblings of people with ADHD, I would have said, okay, thank you very much, have a great day. I would have hung up, and I wouldn't have even talked to that person. Because we really need to focus and make sure that we're targeting one small group of people to understand their problems. Otherwise, it gets too messy, and we can't draw a pattern amongst the norm. Great question.
Great. Thanks, Justin. We need to move into takeaways.
Takeaways. Okay, great. So I know I have lots more questions, so I'm sure you do too. We're going to try and get to those later, or like I said, on the supplemental section tomorrow. But right now, I need you guys to go and do another 1 minute on the clock, and I want you to take one takeaway, one thing. I want you to write down from this experience, from that exercise, that you're going to take with you going forward. 1 minute. Go. Too bad, because we got to go. If you can, please paste in your takeaway to the group chat so that we can collect those again, get our feedback, and make sure that we are doing the right thing. Thank you so much. Okay, here we go. Now, the last two more things. The next one is your script. So you guys are all starting your own companies. You're all starting different companies. You're well into it. I want you guys to write out the very first question. I want you to write down, it can be in anywhere you want, but I want you to write out that very first question where when you told your partner the question was, what's the hardest thing about starting a company? I want you to write out, what's the hardest part about blank? So I'm going to put 1 minute on the clock, and then I'm going to check in. Questions, comments, concerns. This is difficult because it gets back to, hey, how broad of a net are we going to cast when we're asking for problems? So what do you guys have? What do you have for me? Let's just go through everybody. Joe, what do you got?
What's the hardest part about seeing the veterinarian?
About seeing the veterinarian. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about that question. Joe, do you have any?
Well, I could have gone broad and said, what's the hardest part about keeping your pet healthy?
Mm-hmm.
But I specifically wanted to focus it around going to or not necessarily going to, but seeing a veterinarian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. What happens if your question was, what's the most difficult thing about owning a dog?
Yeah, that's obviously a lot broader, and that would be interesting. That may bring up, well, yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Okay, so talk to me about pros and cons.
Well, I'm not sure if this is a pro or a con, but it may bring up an entirely different thing that we're not working on right now, which is obviously we're working on right now, mobile veterinary services.
Mm-hmm.
So if the hard thing about, having a dog is getting it walked or getting it boarded, that suggests that we're in the wrong area, which is maybe something we should know about.
Yeah, interesting. Well, so that's a really good point. Because, again, I just want to reiterate, what we're looking for here during our interviews is not just a list of problems. We're looking for the problems that they're actively trying to solve. So what we want to do is we want to talk to pet owners and figure out, well, what problems do these pet owners are they trying to solve? The best way to find that out is to ask them a broad question. What's the biggest pain in the butt about owning a dog? Now, if this customer segment says buying the right food or shaving it on a regular basis, whatever, then we have two choices. We either get to go pivot to the problems that customer segment has, or we have to go find a different segment of customers and see if they have the problem. So either you change your niche or you change the problem. That make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're having trouble getting connections, make it wide open. Be broad. Great. Okay, what else we got? Dimitri, what do you got?
I actually had a B2B script, so I was asking a person about what's the hardest thing about achieving success in your role.
Yeah. All right, great. All right, great. I'd buy it. I think in the B2B scenario, I love that interview. I love that question. So great job. Nice job.
Yeah. So I found out my partner had was a part of a bigger company, and so ultimately it kind of led to the B2B scenario.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, great. So, again, questions, I know you've got them. Keep firing them away, and we'll try and make ourselves available to chat about them. All right, so while we're wrapping up, I want to really make sure that you guys know that if you enjoyed this workshop, if you like this kind of collaboration, this interactivity, there's a group of us who do this on a regular basis in our customer acquisition teams. You can scroll down to the bottom of the page. There's more information about these customer acquisition teams. They were built explicitly for you folks on this Hangout, people who understand the principles of customer development, why it's important, and are now applying the principles. So I built them using customer interviews. I built them by talking to people like you about what's most difficult. So they're really, if you're on this Hangout, they're designed for you and they're designed to help. And luckily, we have a couple folks from customer acquisition teams the last year on the call. So yeah, Stephen, Beth, you guys want to share just 30 seconds about your CAT experience so people know?
Sure. I loved it. After going through a few more traditional business accelerators, I found it way more effective since it's much more of a peer support group and everyone kind of gets the lean mentality, whereas a regular business accelerator kind of gets stuck in analysis paralysis around your idea and solution and don't really move forward. So I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah. Beth, what was your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, I had a great experience with it. I enjoyed the accountability piece, knowing that every week I had the call to update my peers on where I was and just use them as a sounding board. I got a ton of information, whether it be websites or resources or books or something they've tried that they've had a really good success with or something they've tried that has failed. It was just very, very helpful.
Awesome. That's really cool to hear. And Dimitri, I know you've signed up for customer acquisition teams. What are you excited about?
I'm excited about having a peer support group just push me, to achieve a certain goal every week. I think that'll be awesome. That's what I've been looking for. I'm a single founder, and so just trying to find a co-founder is tough. But also, this is an alternative. This is an alternative to have the accountability part and just be able to achieve your goals by having a support group. I think that would be awesome.
That's great, and I know that's something that a lot of other CAT members really get out of these groups. I even got a lot out of the accountability from these groups, having to say what I'm going to do every week and then having to step up and accomplish that. And I know Stephen, he was agreeing. Joe, any other thoughts, feedback, or takeaways from CATs? I know you're joining up again, right, Joe?
Yeah, planning on it. Again, I think just to echo what people have already said, the sort of support group was always was great. It was just good to have a fresh set of eyes on what you're, neck deep in each week and get hopefully a fresh perspective on your issues and problems and you're dealing with them was always really helpful.
Awesome, great. Cool, guys. All right, well, thank you very much for sharing your customer acquisition team experience. Please, our registration ends at the end of next week, so if you're interested, we're going to sell out. We did last time, so if you're interested, definitely grab your spot. And then register, and then we'll get you going. We'll get you set up with a team. If you have any questions at all, let me know. Speaking of which questions, I'm going to hang out here. I'm going to answer questions for a little while longer. And then what we're going to do is I'll send out information about a possible supplementary session tomorrow, starting just a half an hour after this one, for any other follow-up questions that you guys might have. But thank you so much for taking the time and the energy and your enthusiasm to make this happen. I know it was weird and it was different. I really appreciate your participation. Hopefully this is the first of many online workshops that we will be doing, but hopefully other people will be doing as well now that we've seen that it's possible. So thank you very much, guys. Have a great day. Best of luck interviewing, and then I will hopefully see you guys in your customer acquisition teams. Later.